First at 9.
A very good evening and welcome to News at 9, live from the News First Centre here in Colombo. I'm Minoshi Ratnasekara.
And I'm Nadim Mazid. Let's start off with a look at the news-making headlines tonight.
The headlines on News First at 9.
British Prime Minister says that if Sri Lanka does not hold a trustworthy investigation, an international inquiry will be called for. Government response: there is no reason for an international investigation. The Little Master Sachin Tendulkar retires from Test cricket. Import tax on potatoes and big onions reduced.
News First at 9.
Now on to the news in detail. British Prime Minister David Cameron says that if Sri Lanka does not complete a credible investigation by March next year, then Britain will use its position in the UN Human Rights Council to call for an international investigation. Now the Prime Minister made this comment addressing the media at the Chogam 2013 Media Centre at the BMICH in Colombo.
Yes, and subsequent to Prime Minister Cameron's briefing, several government ministers convened a press conference at the same venue. At this press conference, Leader of the House, Minister Nimal Siripala de Silva, said that there is no reason to call for an international inquiry.
We should show proper respect for the fact that this country suffered almost 3 decades of bloody conflict. And recovery and reconciliation, these things cannot take place in a few months or even in a few years. But yesterday I made clear to Sri Lanka's President Rajapaksa, that he now has a real opportunity through magnanimity and reform to build a successful, inclusive and prosperous future for his country. And I very much hope that he seizes it. That means working in partnership with the newly elected Chief Minister of the Northern Province. It means freedom for the media, and it means credible, transparent and independent investigations into alleged war crimes. And let me be very clear, if that investigation is not completed by March, then I will use our position on the UN Human Rights Council to work with the UN Human Rights Commissioner and call for a full, credible and independent international inquiry.
We are used to this pressure. Sri Lankan government will do the correct thing, but will not do the wrong thing due to pressure. We will resist any international inquiry. That is the policy of the government. Because we believe that there is no reason for an international inquiry. Within a short span of time, we have done our best in the reconciliation process. Most of the allegations are unfounded. We have already conducted certain internal inquiries. So there is no justification for predetermined international inquiry.
As things stand, the Sri Lankan government don't accept the need for a full independent inquiry. They haven't established it. They have, of course, set up their own reconciliation commission, and that has done some good work. But I think this particular piece of work needs to be done. And the message I have is that this issue isn't going to go away. This is an issue now of international concern, and it's going to be an issue that, as I say, won't go away, and we should pursue it very vigorously.
No country should be allowed to impose their form of thinking on another country. That is not the Commonwealth value and tradition. We were participating in Geneva for last 2 years. This threat had been always there. So this is not a new threat. And the other thing, Britain alone can't do that. So we can go before the UNHCR and explain our position and to take a rational view, taking into the ground realities of Sri Lanka and what we have done. So therefore we are confident to go before UNHCR and contest this issue.
We have done everything possible what the government can do. And those who have visited the Jaffna Peninsula after the war and even in the eastern province, you can see the tremendous pace of work that we have been able to do. And that clearly mentions the government commitment. We want to make sure that every community in this country, every person living in this country, to live in dignity and for the betterment of the country. That is our aim. And we will not deter by those who live outside without understanding the correct position of Sri Lanka, because they are not privy to see the development of Sri Lanka, to tarnish that image.
you can see enormous economic progress been made, and as I say, great potential. I'm hugely optimistic about the country's future. But also, it's very important that we don't ignore issues such as freedom and human rights.
We have a good educational background. We have a rich history of over 2,500 years. Therefore, we can solve our own issues. We invited Mr. Cameron to attend Chogam. He is coming into our house and telling us things. I think it is more honorable to fully experience our hospitality and then leave. We are glad that he is providing us with advice on what we must do. We as a country will decide on whether or not we accept it. We have citizens in our country as well as a democratically elected government. We have a good knowledge on how the government should carry out these activities in accordance with the country's existing legal framework.
Well, at the discussion held this morning, President Mahinda Rajapaksa requested heads of states who are currently in Sri Lanka to wish Sri Lanka their best for its future journey.
A discussion held today on uplifting sport in the Commonwealth nations was attended by the heads of states who are in the country for the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. The event was organized by the Commonwealth Games Federation and the Ministry of Sports. A group including President Mahinda Rajapaksa, Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott, Secretary General of the Commonwealth Games Federation Louis Martin and the heads of states were present for the discussion.
We have given a reason, created the space and opportunity for those who carried guns now to carry the national flag and cheer for victory as one nation, one Sri Lanka. We invite you to be a well-wisher and a stakeholder in our march forward and the story of resurgence.
Welcome back to the news.
Now we're into day 2 of the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, and here at News First we've been covering every angle of the conference from the day from the commencement of Chogam Week. News First Madhushka Balasuriya joins us now from the Chogam Media Centre at the BMICH with more.
Yes, good evening guys. Now today, presiding over a media briefing, President Mahinda Rajapaksa responded to questions regarding calls for an international inquiry on allegations of war crimes.
But today, British Prime Minister David Cameron said if the Sri Lankan government fails to complete the investigations into war crimes or alleged war crimes by March next year, he will push for international war crime inquiry.
That is his view. It's a democratic country. Democratic, I mean, we are all equal. Yeah. And they can say what they want.
So would you complete?
How can you complete? I mean, people who are in glass houses must not throw stones.
I would like to ask you whether you will indeed launch an investigation into war crimes, alleged war crimes in this country, as requested today by the British Prime Minister and also by the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. And if so, how far up the chain of command will that investigation go? Thank you.
So we have appointed the LLRC. Then everybody was said against it, saying that it will never happen, and it happened. We applied it. Now we have obliged to most of the proposals that they told us, and we are implementing it. We need time for some. If there are any allegation against anybody, I said last time that we are ready to inquire into it. We have nothing to hide. Otherwise, I would have given visas to people who is very critical about us, allowing them freely to move around the country. We had challenges after the war, a lot of challenges. 300,000, nearly 300,000 IDPs who walked into our side because they couldn't stay there. They were kept like a human shield by the terrorists, by Prabhakaran, and so they walked into our side. They would have walked to the government control area if they did not trust us.
Today, Prime Minister Cameron, as well as others, have told us that international pressure is good for Sri Lanka. Would you agree with that? And if not, why, sir?
Pressure won't do anything. Any pressure will, might clash. So it's much better to request than trying to demand or dictate.
Only 28 of the 53 states have attended, that in terms of their leaders. This is a meeting of Commonwealth leaders, and only 28 of those leaders are here, 25 are not. How do you explain that? Might it have something to do with the location and the issues that have clouded the run-up to this meeting here?
From the level of the engagement which I have seen by all the delegation and all the heads present here, I see very little difference between the retreat today in Chogam and the previous retreats. All, we respect the level at which any delegation is here, but they all come with the equal willingness and enthusiasm to contribute to the causes that have brought them here. As far as the outcomes are concerned, you will find at the end of this Chogam that it has been very productive and it has been very meaningful and successful.
Now, meanwhile, the President Rajapaksa has emphasized to British Prime Minister David Cameron that as it has only been 4 years since the end of the war, Sri Lanka needs more time to overcome all major challenges. Now, the President made this comment when David Cameron called on him on the sidelines of Chogam last evening.
David Cameron, the Prime Minister of the UK, met with President Mahinda Rajapaksa last evening at the Sirimava Bandaranaike Memorial Exhibition Centre. During the meeting, President Rajapaksa had explained that an enormous amount of work had been done in terms of resettlement, rehabilitation and reconstruction of infrastructure destroyed during the conflict. The President had also said that in order to reach consensus on political matters, a parliamentary select committee has been established for all parties concerned to air their views and reach a settlement. President Rajapaksa had observed that the PSC is the best forum for the purpose. Prime Minister Cameron expressed the following views at a media briefing on his meeting with the President.
Why are you here in Sri Lanka? What is your prime motive? Is it to attend the Commonwealth or to assess the human rights record in Sri Lanka? And during your stay in Britain, you said that you will be raising tough questions with the Sri Lankan authorities, the Sri Lankan President. During a 45-minute discussion with the Sri Lankan President, what were the tough questions that you raised? And the President, during a media briefing, said that he has also questions for you. What were the concerns that the President raised during these meetings?
I wanted to come for both reasons. I wanted to come and attend the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. It's an important meeting, it's an important organisation, and as I've explained, there's a whole series of issues that Britain wants to see progress on, and it's very important to work in all the international forums of which we're a member to get those issues achieved. But while I was here, I wanted to also, as I said, shine a spotlight on some of the issues here in Sri Lanka that need to be addressed. In terms of the issues I raised with the President, well, it's the full set of issues that we've been discussing: the need for an independent inquiry into the events at the end of the war, the need for displaced people to be given homes and livelihoods, the need for human rights and journalistic freedoms, the need for reconciliation, the need to make sure that the right track is taken. The President made a series of points in response. His point is very much that they need time. And I accept it does take time to reconcile. We discussed, for instance, the example of Northern Ireland. So a frank meeting. Of course, not everything I said was accepted, but I sense that they do want to make progress on these issues, and it will help, frankly, by having international pressure in order to make sure that that happens.